There's no 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's like boom, just get in live.
We take a week off and we forget everything.
I gotta see. Okay, I gotta go over to like YouTube and see like has it started yet. There's a 10-second delay, by the way, with all this kind of stuff.
Oh, is there really?
Yeah, just in case we get saucy.
Oh, so if we say too many naughty words, do they censor us? What's the deal?
Nah, it's just kind of like time delay, like on a baseball game or whatever. Just in case someone says the throw the F bomb or the something bomb.
The F-er word. Yeah. Frankfurter.
Yeah, the Frankfurter bomb. That's exactly it. Yes.
Hey, John, thank you for joining us.
Oh, maybe I should switch to the comments tab.
Because, that would help.
Because comments.
Do some of that.
Yeah.
Because we got people joining us right off the bat. Thank you guys for popping in. We appreciate you on our triumphant return after we took a whole week off. Norm, you were in Hawaii the week before, and I had Philip guest hosting with me. So tell me, how was Hawaii?
Oh, Hawaii is fantastic. It's so here's what I love about Hawaii. I love Hawaii for the sheer fact that it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's a destination, vacation destination, and all that stuff. Here's my big problem with Hawaii.
What's your big problem with Hawaii?
My big problem with Hawaii is that it was very tough, even in some of the better bars and restaurants, to find a good whiskey or bourbon. Mai Tais and all that rum stuff, fine. You can get Mai Tais till the cows come home. As a matter of fact, true story, Carol and I were at a luau, and this guy was literally like pouring like a row of 20 Mai Tais, without even looking. Like he was using the force, he was like, here's the rum, here's the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Professional bartending right there.
Right. And he's talking to all the guests. And then I walk up and I go, what kind of bourbon you got back there? And it's like time stopped. It's like that scene in Animal House where it's like, whoop, it's like, we're the only white people here.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. The record scratch and then silence.
Yeah. It's like I was the only bourbon drinker there. So.
So they just don't do that out there, huh?
Well, it's very rare. So I'm just like, I'll do rum if I have to.
If you've got to, darn, that sucks.
That's like Londo not drinking Bravari and like drinking like the local whatever. He's like, why would I do that? Why would I do that?
Yeah. Bravari. Speaking of which, are you drinking Bravari tonight?
I sure am.
I bet you are. Yeah, buddy. Look at that fancy glass. Now I'm with my usual. And I'm doing my pomegranate and vodka martini. So
that sounds so tasty.
It's delicious. It's almost dangerously delicious because the pomegranate schnapps, it's pretty sugary. So it offsets the vodka and you feel like you're drinking soda. But damn if it's not tasty.
That is a dangerous soda.
Oh, it was so good. I love it.
So let's get into our toast, huh? Let's toast all the people that are here.
Yeah. Hey,
Valtu.
Yeah, we've got some people to say hello to, like John Bowersox, Sean Dempsey, Daniel Keller. Hey, guys. And the other people who have not chimed in yet. Yo, who are you? Say hello.
Don't let this Daniel Keller guy's nom de plume fool you. That's his what do you call the writers have their writer's name, right? That's Randy. I'm calling you straight out,
it's Randy. Yeah, he did say that. What was it? A few weeks back when we moved over to YouTube. He's like, just in case you're wondering who this was. I remember.
So when people sign in, on our banner, it's we've advertised this show as being what do you want? Our live chat here with the ZócaloCast fans. So you so far, John, Sean, and Randy, you so far get first shot at us. After we do a little bit of housekeeping here, you get first shot at us to talk about what you want to talk about. Because this show, I'm going to do a little bit of my William Shatner here. This show is about you. This show is about what you want to talk about. Right?
Yes. I love it.
And Shar, if you want, I can do the entire show in
Shatner.
My Bill Shatner voice.
If you want. I'm not mad about it. Yeah.
Trademark got pending. Sorry, Bill. I don't want to get flagged by YouTube for trademark infringement on.
We do have to be careful about that, don't we? Dang it!
I mean, yes and no. I don't really understand it yet. I don't think we've broken any rules yet. But I think when you start monetizing the show, and we haven't started monetizing the show yet,
not yet.
You have to worry about fair use and all that kind of stuff. But we've done podcasts before, so we know how to kind of like dance around fair use.
A little bit. Yeah. The thing is about monetization, we need more subscribers to be able to do that.
We do, but we have
somebody.
Yeah, we have had a little bit of an increase in subscribership over the last. Well, I would say days, but that's not true. And actually, the last few hours because Terry Jones. Now, Terry Jones, he is a Babylon 5 expert extraordinaire.
Most definitely.
I mean, I would put Terry in the realm of, say, like a Dr. Larry Nemeczek level of extraordinaire.
And that's pretty high up there. Like, for those of you who don't know, Larry Nemeczek is like the Star Trek historian, essentially. And that's what Terry is, I think, to Babylon 5. He's certainly high up there. And if you ever have a question that you're just not sure about, you look at the Babylon 5 encyclopedia, you still can't figure it out, that's the guy to go to. Ask him. I'm sure he'd be happy to help.
Yes. And he has kind of like the tagline from that Ranger, it's like, I serve to live, I live to serve. Really? Are you really going to say that again? Again?
Yeah, but it's the truth. It's the truth. He lives and breathes Babylon 5 just as much, if not more so than we do.
Oh, he was in charge of the history of Babylon 5 encyclopedia, the online encyclopedia, and worked, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, but I do believe that you said that you work closely with Joe and Captain Jacqueline at B5 Books. So speaking of which, to plug the Kickstarter that's out there right now.
Oh yeah. Have you done that?
I am. I'm trying to finish up some bills now at the beginning of the month.
After you come back from vacation.
Right. Because I really needed that extra plate of Spam musubi. But I really
Of course you did. I mean, hell, it's vacation. You got to live it up. But now you got to pay for it.
You got to pay the piper.
I get it. That's why we haven't got on vacation in a long time.
This year was a little bit rougher because the way the tax season was for all of us U.S. taxpayers. I'm not saying that everyone that's watching understands U.S. tax law, but neither do I, so I'm paying.
Yeah, the tax laws changed, and that affected a lot of people because what we all needed to do was put away a little bit more as a result of the so-called tax cuts. It's a hot mess, and a lot of people are paying now rather than getting a refund, which a lot of people depend on, and it's screwing some things up hardcore.
Yeah, but I will. There are 3 days left. So today is June 5th, 2019. There are 3 days left. 3 days left after today, or including today, for that Kickstarter called All Alone in the Night. It is Jonathan Davis. That's correct, right? I believe it's Jonathan Davis.
I sadly do not know that because when I think Jonathan Davis, I think of the lead singer of Korn. That's not that guy. But it is a history of Babylon 5. That's what this guy is doing. And I have backed the Kickstarter. I got the Ranger level. So I'm getting weekly updates now on the progress of how things are going.
What happened in this week's update? Is that something that we're allowed to share?
I do not know, so I'd like to refrain just in case we'd be breaking some rules.
Okay.
Hate to say, I don't know if that's shareable information or not. I kind of think it might be a exclusive thing.
Oh, to the pledgers, yeah, that would.
I'm
sorry, it's Jason.
I don't want to get kicked off.
It's Jason. I get confused with my friend of mine, Jonathan Melville, because Jonathan Melville, he's a Highlander historian, and he's doing his book, not a Kickstarter, but this is Jason Davis's book, The Babylon 5 Preservation Project.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this is not a B5 Books project, but this is a guy who knows his stuff just as much as those guys do. And Joe has tweeted out the link, so that's as much of an endorsement as he can give to this project. He says that, yes, this is a good guy. It's about as legit as it can be. And so it's got his blessing.
Let me see if I'm going to try and do a computery thing here. There's the link. People, if you want to hit the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Right there. Whoops, I shouldn't show that.
Oh, yeah. Wowie. That's a long URL.
I don't know how to do this, man. I'm so terrible.
Newfangled technology. Ugh.
My goodness.
Oh, Sean says that our video looped and then we repeated about 20 seconds. Maybe we're in some kind of time warp. Are we in Sector 14?
I think Sean's in a time loop. It's not us.
I think you're in Sector 14.
Yeah. Forget you.
It's not us. It's you.
He zips, then fastens.
Well, that explains everything.
How do you get the beans above the Franks? So if anyone can get you that reference, you let me know. Anyway, so with the Babylon 5 Preservation Project on Kickstarter, let's see. As of today, they are at or Jason is at 68,247 of a $30,000 goal. So he's basically doubled his money that he needed, which is awesome, which always leads towards either better distribution, more copies, high quality paper, maybe a hardcover. So that kind of stuff, right?
Maybe even better perks. We don't entirely know because that's way above, I think, expectations. So yay, the Babylon 5 fandom, I think we can conclude, is still alive and well. There's a lot of us out there who still love this show, celebrate this show, and want more content regarding this show. And that is in part why you and I and everybody who's tuning in are here. We're here to talk some Babylon 5.
All right, Sarah. So you had something that you wanted to talk about at the beginning of the show before we start jumping into the questions, because we have some great questions that have popped up. So before we get to those.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to Sean Dempsey because of he shared a great photo on the Facebook page. So if you're not in our Zocalo Facebook group, this is the place to find it. Claudia Christian was in Denver for Pop Culture Con last weekend, and thanks to Sean, the Zocalo got to represent, and he was kind enough to get a photo with Claudia while holding a Zcast shirt. So check that out. And remember, of course, that Ivanova is God. She is now our God, if she wasn't already.
And she is promoting a new book.
That's right.
About healthier eating.
For gamers.
For gamers.
Yes, yeah. And it includes recipes from people that we know, like Robin Atkins Down, Mira Furlan, among many other folks that I just can't remember right now. But those are the B5 connections that we've got. I think maybe Patricia Tallman might have a little something. So there's a lot of cute photos, a lot of great recipes. I do have this on pre-order because how can I not?
Is there something in there in particular that you're hoping that you would find as a snack?
No, and as a vegetarian, there's probably a lot of recipes where, like, I'm hoping I can just omit the meat and try them anyway.
Gotcha.
Well, actually, you know what my big hope is like for gamer culture, I want recipes to be simple and quick and tasty.
Definitely snack foodie type stuff for sure.
And we know that Claudia Christian is a really good cook. She loves to cook. And so I'm hoping she can maybe help me out a little bit because I like simple. I like basic. Nutritious is good. I mean, although my diet doesn't always show that.
Like you said, nutritious is good.
It's all right if you can manage to fit that in. But otherwise, I'm just thinking quick, simple, easy, tasty.
Okay, so this is the thing that I told you that you might be a little bit jealous about. So
tell me, what the heck is going on, Sir? You tease.
So Sean spoils me. I love you, Sean. You know I do. And
what did Sean do?
Sean messaged me earlier on in the week, right after he posted that picture to our Facebook page. And he says, expect something in the mail by Thursday, this being Wednesday. And it showed up today. And there was a U.S. flat envelope, U.S. mail flat envelope. It says, do not bend. By the way, Sean, anytime you say do not bend on anything, someone's going to bend it. Just
naturally.
But it didn't happen this time because,
thank God.
Because the gods were with me, all of the Centauri gods.
The Ivanova gods.
So Sean sent me this picture.
Oh, look at that.
And
now,
it says,
I can totally read the writing.
It says, when are you inviting me on your podcast?
Oh, any day, sweetheart. Any day.
And that's Claudia.
Claudia. Oh, that was so cool.
So yeah,
jealous.
That totally made my Wednesday.
My gosh. Oh my God. We got to invite her on the show now and interview her.
It's a great shot of her too.
Yeah, that's some serious Ivanova. She is large and in charge.
Yeah. Fantastic stuff. Thanks, Sean, so much.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Oh, yeah. Sean did spoil you. That's awesome.
Yeah, he spoils me. He's a good man.
That's great. And thank you, Sean, for representing the Zocalo. That was super, super cool.
And
all right, we have questions.
Yeah, we have questions. Let's rewind this Sector 14 style, and let's take a look. The first question. Okay, John Bowersox is, he's first up on the list. He's in the bullpen here. He's first up on the list, and he says, "What do I want? What do I want?" He goes, "I'm really interested about the mind wipe thing." So we did talk about the mind wipe, in episodes such as Quality of Mercy, because the criminal in that episode was going to get mind wiped. We were introduced to the alien healing device in that episode, but also in the episode.
Passing through Gethsemane.
We're talking about the episode with Brad Dourif and the mind wipe there. What was your initial take on the mind wipe? Did you find that humane? Did you find that as an eye for an eye? Did it meet your standards for justice?
Loaded question, right? Mm-hmm. And it just so happens that I watched this recently with my husband, Patrick, who's watching Babylon 5 for the first time. And so we discussed this, I think, last weekend. And so it's fresh in my mind. And I'm thinking, the more that I think about mind wipes, the more that I process what can go wrong, how they work. Is it humane? Is it the right solution? Initially, I thought, yeah, that is a great solution to try and meet in the middle, to make somebody pay for their crimes and yet give back to society. I'm not so sure now, because when things go wrong with mind wipes, they go really wrong. Mm-hmm. And there's also that whole question of, as we see in Passing Through Gethsemane, people who have suffered loss as a result of somebody in their family maybe being murdered, searching for the person who killed their loved one. And if they find out who that is, there's a lot of problems there too. I feel like the system just is not fully designed to work as intended. Sort of like how the Psi Corps came to be. It was well-meaning and then became its own little monster. And mind wipes aren't quite on that scale, but it doesn't seem to be everything that we would like it to be. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, one of the things that I found interesting about mind wipe versus the contrivances of writing and the need to move the plot ahead is that the mind wipe in and of itself, at least for me, the mind wipe in and of itself is at least it's a solid option for rehabilitation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. If in fact you were able to do the mind wipe and then take that person, that new personality, and put them in a position where the risk of that mind wipe wasn't as pointed of a fact as it was in Passing Through Gethsemane. Because the reason why Brother Edward, his mind wipe failed is because there were the families of the victims of the Black Rose Killer that were forcing him to remember and break the mind wipe. They wanted their pound of flesh.
They were kind of Garibaldi's mindset, eye for an eye.
Right. And that would lead to a blind and toothless society, as Delenn pointed out.
I can't help but agree with that.
But if in fact that they did the mind wipe and say they put somebody in witness protection, the future equivalent of witness protection, and put them on a planet that was remote, that nobody who suffered or were relatives of someone who suffered that crime, they would never be able to get a handle of them, then they might be able to live out a peaceful, normal, new existence without that type of repercussion.
Well, I think that's the idea. And I think that's what they tried with Brother Edward, and it just so happened it did not work. Now, that's not to say that happens with everybody who's mind wiped. Chances are it works for the majority of cases. Yeah. But when it goes wrong, it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. And it can. I guess it really depends on the quality of the mind wipe. See, here's the interesting thing is that when Sinclair was mind wiped for the 24 hours, that was done by a Centauri telepath, because that's what Delenn said in the beginning. Just like, summon a telepath so we can remove this memory from his mind, or at least block it out. So Centauri telepath
or Minbari?
I'm sorry, Minbari.
Okay, I'm like, wait a minute, where did that come from?
Sorry,
why would a Centauri telepath do that?
But she said, you go, a call for a telepath so we can take care of this. So it's kind of like oversight and regulations on telepathic talent. It's like the Psi Corps, obviously, that's the Earth Alliance regulated telepath structure. But then you have you have Centauri telepaths, you have Minbari telepaths, and we don't know the quality of their mind wipe, right? So
you would think that Minbari, being an older race, would be a little more thorough in their mind wipe, but as we saw with Sinclair, things happen.
And it's kind of like not everybody's probably going to take to it. Probably depends on their personality, probably depends on their psyche, their ego.
Hey, there's a thought too. Yeah. I mean, the brain, we don't know. And for as much as we know about the brain, there's so much we don't know.
Right. And John has a couple follow-ups, but I want to make sure that we get to a couple of other questions here. So
yes,
we're gonna put a pin in that and get to the next question. So Randy, he says, if Earth went to war with Centauri, would we win?
Are we talking Babylon 5 era, or are we talking like right now? Because if the Centauri came now, we are occupied by the Centauri.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And, maybe they can help fix some things around here. Maybe it wouldn't be terribly bad. I don't know. We're not doing a very good job right now ourselves.
But let's take it to the point of if the Earth Alliance went to war with the Centauri, say around the time of the Dilgar, or right around the time of Babylon. Like, okay, so when negotiations broke down and when Londo went completely like bonkers, if Earth had to go to war against the Centauri, would we win?
Yeah, okay. I have a feeling that Earth would still lose. I think the Centauri are more practiced, and Earth in this time period is a little arrogant. They think they can take on anything. We'd get our butts kicked fast.
I would agree if it weren't for the fact that Cartagia would be in charge, and kind of like Hitler, he didn't really know how to run a proper military campaign because Hitler, Cartagia wanted everything at once all at once at the same time.
That's true. He was like a Veruca Salt. I want it now.
Right. And much like any history leader in history that has failed to take Russia in any war front ever, especially in the spring, when you divide your forces the way that Cartagia did, you would lose, so.
Now, what about pre-Cartagia, though?
Turhan, I don't think, well, yeah.
Would he even go after Earth after what happened with the Narn?
The Omega-class destroyers, in my opinion, the Omega-class destroyers aren't as advanced as the Primus-class heavy cruisers that the Centauri had. The Primus-class cruisers were so overpowered. They're like so like in every government, you had the Omega class destroyers, which were the heavy destroyers of Earth. You had the Charlynn class destroyers of the Minbari. You had the Jaquan class heavy destroyers of the Narn, and then you had the Primus class of the Centauri. And they were, I think in terms of just the pure armaments, I think the Primus class would prevail in those points.
So. I don't believe in humanity as much as you do.
What do you mean?
Just, we'd probably fall.
No, that's what I'm saying. The Primus class would prevail.
Oh, I thought prevail. Oh, okay.
Prevari, people.
Prevari.
So
I'm stunning.
I'm in purple. I'm stunning in purple.
You are in purple. I am Gray Council, apparently. I need a hood.
Let's see. So moving on.
Got a good question from Dennis.
Go for it.
I want to know, what is your favorite B5 canon novel and why? Now, Norm, have you read any of the novels yet?
No.
I knew that was the answer. That's why I had to kind of poke.
Did you? You have?
I have. I've read the first of the Psychor trilogy, and right now I'm reading through Third Space, which is getting a little more interesting as we go. It's got a lot of the stuff we see on screen, but there's also a little more introspection, as is fit for a novel. And the stuff that I'm getting from Lita, things that I'm learning about Lita in this novel so far, make it my favorite of the whole two that I've read so far. Now, I have more of the Babylon 5 novels. I'm going to keep reading through them as I go. So check back with me in, I don't know, a few months, and let's see if my answer has changed.
Did you see my face when you said, I was like, huh? Third Space novel? What?
I know. Yeah, that's what I'm reading right now. As a matter of fact, I take about, anywhere from half an hour to a full hour to read before bed lately, instead of being on the internet, because just, dang it, I've got to limit my screen time. I'm in front of a computer off and on throughout the whole day, running my business and doing other stuff. And it's gotten too much. So I'm getting more into a physical world this way, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm reading a lot more. And it is true that for whatever reasons, studies have shown if you read something in print, you are more likely to remember its contents than if you read it electronically.
Really?
Yes. And I can attest this is true because one of the final years when I was in college, I did only ebooks. And you know what? I didn't retain the knowledge nearly as well as I did while reading, say, a good old paperback or hardcover book. And I suffered as a result.
I read terribly. I read comic books. Does that count?
Hey, that's something. I mean, yeah. Yeah. If you're reading like a real paper comic book, yeah.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I haven't read any of the novels yet. Not that I won't. I will.
I want you to.
I know I want you to.
I'm not going to stop pestering you about this.
I'm going to run a Kickstarter and have people fund me to read a book. How about that?
Oh, come on. No. People are going through some serious crap if they're funding a Kickstarter. No. Guys, if anything, support the show and buy a shirt. Okay?
I like your style.
Yo, that's promotion. Don't fund Norm's Kickstarter. Make him read anyway.
I should read more.
People.
I spend too much time on social media. So, okay. So
promoting the show, but you know.
All right. So I want to go back to what John was talking about. John had a follow-up here. He goes, but as you said, if it goes wrong, as you said, Char, the mind can be really messed up. A lot of psychology problems.
Yep.
What if the person was innocent of the crime and had a mind wipe?
Right.
Well, if I may quote Spock from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, remember when Bones said, he's like, well, good Lord, you know, like what if the Genesis probe was launched to a planet where life actually existed? Then, you know, Spock said it would reprogram that planet, you know, in favor of the new Matrix. The new Matrix. My God, man. You realize what you're saying? Man. But it's true. It's like that's
what would happen is it would override, sort of like a hard drive where you delete a piece of information and then something else will eventually take its place.
Yes. I mean, I understand what you're saying, John, and you know, the justice system is far from perfect.
No. Also, I mean, that brings up a good point. I mean, do you have to be so guilty beyond a reasonably doubt for the system to consider a mind wipe? Because we have people on death row where DNA is now exonerating them from their crime.
I'm wondering if, like, in the era of the Psy-Corps and telepaths and you know, telepaths being able to ferret out more of the truth behind guilt or innocence, if that kind of reduced the percentage of people that were wrongly accused.
I thought telepathic evidence wasn't necessarily admissible in court. Because remember when Talia is talking to Garibaldi trying to figure out who shot him?
No, it's like it's not, but I'm wondering if it would lend more towards people who are investigating the crimes to be able to do more homework as opposed to like an open and shut case.
Oh, so like the telepath can kind of point them in the right direction. They can find corroborating evidence?
Or at least cause a little bit more reasonable doubt.
Okay. You know, I mean, I could definitely see people in Psy-Corps doing that. They've got a whole unit, you know, devoted to CSI, essentially.
Exactly, because it's kind of like, I understand, you know, that the system is the system, and I hope, you know, the Star Trek optimist in me hopes that, you know, our system's going to be a little bit better. But I do believe that with the telepathic involvement in crimes, you know, at least they'll be able to sway people to dig a little bit deeper as opposed to just take the fact of the matter as status quo.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That much would be nice.
So that's kind of like the optimist to me.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So there's a good question.
What's that?
So Dennis C says, Sinclair or Sheridan, which one was your favorite?
Oh, that's a toughie. Ooh, I love them both for such very different reasons. I feel like if we had 4 seasons of Sinclair as opposed to 4 seasons of Sheridan, well, that would have made it a lot harder. So I kind of have to side on Sheridan just because we got more of him. But that said, I love the crap out of Sinclair. So I'm so torn. I don't know. What about you?
Well, considering that Jakar's my favorite character, I might actually side on Sinclair.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You go, okay, if you go with Sinclair, I'll go with Sheridan. We'll split it 50-50. How's that?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. But here's the reason why, because I think, in my opinion, I think that Michael O'Hare as Sheridan, as Sinclair, for one season made me, I don't know, just made me focus more on him as a character than Sheridan did, because I think Sheridan, Bruce Boxleitner, came in as part of a greater ensemble cast where some of the characters were already a little bit more developed. Delenn was more developed, Jakar was more developed, Londo, all of the cast, Garibaldi was more developed. But in season 1, I felt that Sinclair was really kind of like the driving force of leadership, because none of the other characters were really as developed as we understood them to be in season 2.
It's true. Sinclair really was the anchor of that show. He was the leadership. He was the captain. No question about it. However, Sheridan does have a certain charisma that helps him. Like, he will win people over with that alone more quickly than Sinclair.
Yeah. But the thing is I think Sinclair, to steal a Karate Kid euphemism, will Miyagi you when you least expect it.
This is true. Although Sheridan has his smarts too.
He does. They're both great characters. It's just that I think that it would have been interesting to see where Michael O'Hare would have brought Sinclair over the course of the 5 years.
Versus,
and
yeah, for real. Like, honestly, yeah, if we had just as much time with Sinclair as we would have had as we did have with Sheridan, I kind of wonder if I would have really gotten so endeared to Sinclair that nothing else would have possibly made sense.
I love it when Michael O'Hare as Sinclair, when he just has those moments where he just kind of like sits down and kind of like everyone takes like a big inhale and an even bigger exhale and just kind of talks. Right?
Yeah. And I really like the way Michael O'Hare would wear his emotions on his face in such a subtle way. But if you're looking for it, oh my God, is it there? Like, when he is exhausted, I mean, maybe it's method acting. I'm not entirely sure, but boy, he looks and feels, and he makes me feel exhausted along with him. Just like, wow, that was a long day on Babylon 5.
You mean like in By Any Means Necessary?
Yeah, exactly like that. Oh my gosh. I mean, he got a few gray hairs that day during that whole negotiation.
Here's an interesting question from Randy. He goes, I want to know if the Psi Corps had their way. I want to know if the Psi Corps had their way, how would they have improved humanity?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I think we kind of see their best efforts in action. Humans were afraid of telepaths, and therefore the Psi Corps was formed, and the telepaths were kind of left to their own devices, and this is what we got. This is the best of Psi Corps.
But how would they improve? In what way do you think they would have improved humanity?
Like, okay, let's say they have actually decent intentions. There's nothing too terribly shady going on. They're actually a decent organization.
I mean, do you think that everyone in Psi Corps believes the way that Bester believes?
No, not necessarily. I think there's a lot of differences within the Corps, just as there are with any other kind of human.
Yeah. So let's say that because they're the Psi Corps that worked with Morden and Clark. But I think that if like with any like a clandestine organization, if there were people that were trying to say like, we need to build a better bridge between humanity and mundanes. I'm sorry, mundanes and telepaths. How would we do that? How would they do that?
I think the big question to answer would be, how can telepaths help and be of service to normals, doing something that normals cannot do? I think a lot of it does come into service with things like lie detection and just generalized scans of, is everything cool here? There's got to be a more noble purpose, though. And right now I'm blanking on that a little bit, but there's got to be something, right? Have you got anything?
Well, I mean, let's take a look at Matheson, from Crusade. He never once really did we see him flex his telepathic ability, even though that he was a registered telepath. He had to say so. We never really saw Daniel Day Kim kind of flex that in his acting, where his telepathic ability was necessary to further the plot point of the show. So
yeah, it's true.
So it's almost like it's like a back pocket talent. Like you only really use it when necessary. It's kind of like a weapon or a martial art. Like you're never really going to like reveal it unless it's absolutely paramount to the situation.
Yeah. So do you think that's the example that other telepaths, maybe to do good and improve humanity, would make it possible so that telepaths and normals could coexist peacefully, so that there's not that fear?
There, a lot of this model and the way that I see it, a lot of this model kind of borrows a lot from, say, Magneto and his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and the way that they felt that Homo Superior had to find a way to be able to coexist peacefully with Homo Sapien. And because Magneto said, like, we are like, and Bester felt the same way, like we are greater than the mundanes. And Magneto felt that Homo Superior obviously is greater than Homo Sapien, but how do you do that in a way, or how do you create a relationship in a way where that is going to be non-confrontational?
Right, because once you have a weapon that can be used against somebody else who does not have that capability, instantly you are the enemy, you are divided. Here we are.
Right.
Yeah, that does not have an easy answer. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can answer that question slightly inebriated.
Maybe you can, and you're just not choosing to do.
No, my brain is a blank right now.
Well, I think
I'm not in the deep thoughts part of drunkenness. I've not had enough for that. Ask me in about an hour and this many more drinks later.
Oh my God.
I have a refill. I'm not stopping at one tonight.
Reload. So it's funny. Dennis says about Sinclair or Sheridan, you have to make a choice.
Fine, I choose Sheridan.
I choose Sheridan, but I love Sinclair so much.
Me too. I mean, how can you not love him? He's Valen.
That brings up an interesting point. One of the things I wanted to ask you, is like in this whole like Sinclair versus Sheridan, it's like, do you think that his return in Michael O'Hare's return as an actor and Sinclair's return as a character in War Without End finished his story for you enough? Like, did it resolve him enough?
Yes. For me, it did. It brought it full circle. And the first time I was watching the show, I honestly did not expect Sinclair to come back. I just thought, that's done. It's over. We're never going to see him again. And then when he does come back, and it does come to some nice resolution that Sinclair's destiny was always in the past, I mean, I was blown away. I really was. And given the behind the scenes circumstances, it was amazing that we did get him to come back and that it just happened at all. And so, yeah, I am thrilled with the end result. But how about you? Let me turn it back to you.
I would like, here's the thing is like, yes, but, and I know, and knowing now that Michael O'Hare was, he was struggling, with his ailment, to put it not too lightly, but
yeah, schizophrenia is no joke.
Yeah. I really wanted at least one more resolution scene between him and Michael.
Now that would have always been kind of the nice bow on the top, right? A nice pretty bow, the icing on the cake. I kind of feel like leaving that out might have been done on purpose, just because life is incredibly imperfect, and when people do leave, there's always somebody that gets left behind.
Yeah, or even in a data crystal kind of way, like a last will and testament, a last type of thing. It's like, Michael, I'll never see you again, but this is what happened.
Yo, you're forgetting the message. Hello, old friend.
I mean, there's the message, but like the whole, like, I'm Valen, dude.
Oh. Okay, so you're expecting a ranger at any moment to drop off a message and say, hey, it's Jeff, guess what?
Or like, say, Marcus says, at the very end of an episode, it's like, by the way, I haven't had the chance to give this to you, but here's a data crystal. And all of a sudden is another, right?
Okay. That missing scene would have been that icing on the cake, and it would have taken 5 seconds, and that would have ruled.
We're going to write that episode. You are famous. Now, guy, I don't know, like all the listeners out there, I don't know if you know this, but Char is famous for being able to kind of like rewrite episodes or create new episodes on the fly. Yeah, you are.
I can do that. I would not say I'm famous. I'm a C-list at tops Star Trek podcaster.
Don't sell yourself short.
Hey, look, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been podcasting since 2012. I have done this for a while. And yes, my co-host Tristan Riddell and I, we do write things on the fly. We make it up as we go, and it just goes straight to tape, bam, and we make a show. That's how we do things anymore because we know each other that well. It's insane, and yet I love it every single freaking week. It takes a lot of energy in that moment, and then you just really hope that you spin something out of gold, or into gold.
That's what I want to do with like all the people here. It's like I want them to like throw us plot points and we just start spitballing an episode.
Hey, we got 20 minutes. Let's go.
Well, no. Like later on.
Oh, for another show?
Yeah, for another show.
Ooh, well, that would be fun. I mean, yeah, I'm good. I can think on my feet. I know you can too.
I can literally feel John Bowersox's brain kind of like exploding with like, I want this to happen.
Hey, you know what? I want it to happen too. Maybe that's what we do next week, since we always connect our threads from one episode to another.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia will have to wait another week.
Emily's here. Emily, don't be sitting back there like a wallflower.
Hey, baby, how you doing?
You're the only Crusade, kind of like stalwart fan. So start asking us questions on Crusade.
Ask us anything.
Dennis C's ask us thoughts on Mr. Morden.
Ooh, okay. I've got some choice words on that. You want to know what they are? This might get us censored. Shitpot stirrer.
He is.
That's what he does. He's very good at it.
I think that I actually messaged you this, but like, what if one of the other ambassadors actually took Mr. Morden up on his question?
Ooh, who would it be and why?
Closer. I mean, it would have been closer to Jakar, because I know that Delenn felt, she had like the silver triangle makeup thing that never happened, since, what was it, Signs of Importance. But I think it would have been closer to Jakar, because Jakar was like, it's like, I want to see, I want to see their, whatever, like turned into dust, their, soil,
sure.
Salted to the, whatever. I can't remember the quote.
Sure.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with you where Jakar is the next closest correct answer for Mr. Morden, where Londo wants Centauri Prime to return to greatness. Well, Jakar in season 1 wants revenge on what has happened to his people. So if Morden could fix that, he might not be so mad about that.
Yeah, but the thing is that Jakar has the same claim to that kind of revenge, if not more. So I'm sure. I'm surprised that, if Jakar went that way, what do you think would have happened?
That would have been one devastated man. As much as it decimated Londo, I don't know if Jakar could have lived with those consequences. He would have gone down a dark path. Like, you remember when he did Dust?
Yeah.
Dude, I think that would have just been the start.
It's an interesting thing, because Londo and Jakar are kind of flip sides of the same coin. They both want the same thing. They both want to bring their people back to their former glory.
That's why they're so great.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I just think that somewhere along the line, I think Mr. Morden was smart enough as an agent of the shadows to find kind of like the path of least resistance. And I think that was Londo, because where Jakar had this thirst for vengeance and revenge, Londo was more along the lines of, he didn't have the same conviction that Jakar had.
No, Londo was a lot more abstract. He knew what he wanted and had no idea how to get there. So Morden could fill in that blank for him. Whereas Jakar, I think, would be a little more thought out and a little more difficult to deal with. So I think you're right. Morden sees that opportunity to make an offer that's too good to be true and still get away with it.
There are those personalities where if you give somebody a little bit of accolade, they kind of take that and it's like, okay, now I can kind of justify like the reasons of why I did what I did or why I'm putting myself into this position. I think that's where Londo is. Like Londo was an ambassador because no one else wanted the position. He was this fop. He was a representative of a decaying empire, and he was he embodied everything that was of the past. Jakar still had his conviction of, I want my people to survive, thrive, exact their vengeance upon those who wrong them. But everything about Jakar was really anchored with his religious belief in Jaquan, whereas Londo was like, anything that I can do to improve my status in the Centaurum was paramount to his decision making.
Yep. Yep. It's very selfish motives masked behind the veneer of, I want to do what's good for the Republic.
All right, exactly. But it's more along the lines of, what does it do for me?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And every high-ranking Centauri is like that. What's in it for me? If it helps the Republic, okay, cool, nice bonus, and it looks nice. But what's in it for me?
Who has the greater, I guess, the greater personality weakness towards that kind of manipulation, Londo or Jakar?
Londo.
Yeah.
He's got the bigger ego.
I was about to say penchance, but is that the right penchance? Is that the right word?
I don't know.
Penchant?
I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that. Now that you bring it up.
Penchant?
I don't do French. Sorry.
No,
I studied Latin for a good few years, but I did not. Sadly, that doesn't translate to all the romantic languages as well as you would think.
Here's an interesting thing that Dennis brings up. He goes, if memory is correct, I think the two actors, and this would go all the way back to Sheridan Sinclair with Michael O'Hare and Bruce Boxleitner, he said, did not get along, so was intentional not to have.
He was right.
Together.
Yeah, I think Jerry Doyle kind of figured out that something a little crazy was going on with Michael O'Hare and found him difficult to work with. And so those two did eventually get separated. Yes. So, which I think that does explain why those two had no interaction in War Without End.
War Without End.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that there are no questions about like Ivanova or Zathras or the Great Jane.
Bring it on. Now, Dennis has a nice comment, though, about Mr. Morden. If you read the canon books, you actually get to see how Mr. Morden came to be such a bad guy. Pain changes people and takes them down the wrong path. Well, now you've got me curious. Which book is this? Because I want to read it. So,
you see my eye roll?
Yeah. I know. When reading, oh, man. Londo's ego was as big as his hair was the following comment. And yes, I agree. And I think that's a metaphor for all Centauri. And then John follows that up with ego can be someone's greatest downfall. Well, isn't that the freaking truth? Because egos destroy everything, if you ask me. It's our arrogance. It's our belief that we are right and we are the best that kills a lot of things, whether it's an individual, a country, what have you, a whole world. It's bad stuff.
It's like what Londo said in the beginning is like, that, pride goeth before a fall, and that's not necessarily a human trait. It travels across the cosmos on like solar winds. So Emily, we got her a little bit, I think, and she says that plots and characters you don't like in B5.
Oh, good question. Okay, I got to think about this for just a second.
Plots and characters.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there is anything I just really dislike. In season 1, there's that teenage telepath girl.
Yeah, we never liked that, right?
I never liked her because that was a poor actress. I can't get behind that. I'm sorry. There is that.
Okay, but the thing is that now you're putting that on the actress and not necessarily the plot.
I know. So it's not completely fair, right?
Yeah.
I got to keep thinking here. For the longest time, really, the answer was in season 5. It was the whole Byron arc and the telepaths.
Wow.
I know. And Norm, you are responsible for changing my mind on this. The more that I watch season 5, the more that I see what they were trying to do, the more that I accept it. You have changed my mind. So there.
For the longest time, though, and when I first started, doing the whole social media thing and getting on, like, the B5, the alt B5 forums, on the burgeoning internet back in the day. Yeah, the whole Byron storyline like really didn't sit well with people, but
yeah,
I don't know why, because I remember when you brought me on to Filibuster on the Nerd Network.
For the Nerd Party, we got you first the season 5 review because both Philip and I at that time, well, we were on the fence about season 5 going into it, and then as I went through it one more time, I realized, okay, this isn't as bad as I remember it. But that first viewing of season 5, I was very much in line with the popular opinion of, oh, this isn't as good. And you came in as the champion.
Well, distancing myself from that over a course of time and then returning to it, there's no one is a big fan of the post raison d'etre. You have the climax of a story. Invariably with Babylon 5, you can either say was the climax of the Shadow War, the climax of the Civil War, but the aftermath of that, like no one really likes
falling action.
Yeah, exactly. And then you had, right, Byron come in with the telepaths. You have the motive of that, which is, I'm a huge fan of the Rambo storyline, First Blood. And in that, the story of John J. Rambo in First Blood was that you created me to win a war. In this case, in this war was Vietnam. You created this soldier that was supposed to do things for you that you didn't want to do. But right. I did that for you. This is why you trained me. Colonel Troutman, played by Richard Crenna, he said, this is why you trained me. And now John J. Rambo just wants to live out a normal life. Does this sound familiar? Byron and his telepaths just want to live a normal life. The Vorlons created the telepaths to win the war against the Shadows because they knew that the telepaths would be able to disrupt the Shadow technology.
Right. And then afterward, then what? Nobody really thought about that or cared.
Exactly. But Byron said, you have to at least acknowledge the fact that you created us, or this alliance created us, used us, and now you have to own up to the fact that we want something back in return.
Right. Which is why I think, honestly, Sheridan felt obligated to help them because of what telepaths did do in the war. Both wars.
In a way, which
Earth Civil War.
Which the thing is that scene where he says, it's like, Lita's like, I've been touched by a Vorlon, or it's like, do anything, I'm gonna blow the back of your skull off with this PPG. I'm like, I dislike that scene so much.
Oh, do you? When Lita gets angry? Because I feel like she has every right to be angry.
Exactly, but it's like when Sheridan kind of like becomes and embraces that cult of personality, and he says, "You're not the only one that's touched by a Vorlon." It's like, it's like, let them go, or I'm gonna blow the back of your skull off. I'm like, come on.
Yeah. Really. I mean, I have to sympathize with Lita on that one.
Right. So, I mean, to spin this back to that original point of, the telepaths and that storyline. It's like, I really love that storyline because rarely, if ever, let's look at Deep Space. Let's look at Star Trek, like the other tentpole fandom. Rarely, if ever, do you deal with the aftermath of certain concessions that you make to win the war. Now, in The Pale Moonlight, which is arguably one of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right? You're dealing with the fact that, that Sisko had to compromise, his honor. Like Garrick said, like all it cost was the life of a Romulan senator and the honor of a Starfleet commander. Which was brilliant, but that's what was going on with this. It's like, with all of the things that happened with Babylon 5 and winning the Shadow War, and even some in some certain circumstances, the war against Clark, because they did the whole telepath thing against all the Omega class destroyers and blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's like you had the telepaths were always used.
Yes. And so that's why it's so awesome when Lita kind of puts her foot down and says, "We've been used and abused here. It's our turn now." That's right. Yeah.
Brum, brum, brum. So I will always champion, going back to Emily's point, I will always champion that particular plot of season 5 because, and a lot of people didn't like that. I'm not sure if they didn't like it because did they not like Robin Atkin Downs as Byron? Would they have accepted it better if like there was a different actor? Was he too kind of like blonde Jesus? I don't know.
He reminded me of Fabio. I'll say that much. I don't know if it's so much a problem with Robin Atkins Downs as it just is with the fact that season 5 is a falling action story. People love just this massive culmination of action, but the aftermath can be just as interesting, if not more interesting, than going from plot point to plot point, boom, 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 pew, 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 blow everything up, and then everything is happily ever after. That's where a lot of stories do leave off, though. And so we get kind of trained where that is the end of the story. And so then with season 5 finally getting approved and out there, it's like, oh, you just have afterthoughts. Mm-hmm. Well, no, this is what actually happens in the aftermath of such enormous events. Is it as interesting to watch, though? A lot of people would probably say no. Now, you've got me on your side, and I disagree. But as a viewing casual audience, the popular opinion in 1998 was, oh, this isn't as good. Not until the very end.
Well, I think it's just because, like, I think at that time, everyone's kind of like mentally programmed in the Star Trek tentpole fandom to expect a certain thing, as opposed to like
that too,
like a finite 5-year story arc. So, but that's we're gonna have to do like Bravari with Norman Shar episode where we just like go completely like organic thinking and just blah.
Oh, is that not what we're doing?
Kind of.
I mean, seriously, ask me anything. I'll tell you the stone cold truth. Before we go, we've only got a few minutes left. Hey, I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide.
All right, well, let's go to Dennis's next question.
Actually, can we skip over to Sean and his Gmail?
Oh, yes. Yes.
He sent one in. So let's take care of this because we were begging people to Gmail us. And so here we go. Have Norm or Shar attended any Babylon 5 conventions? If so, what memories can you share? Any future conventions you're aware of that have a B5 focus? Great question. My answer so far, as far as B5 stars go, is no, and I'm eager to go to one. I'm hoping that maybe next year Phoenix Comic Con will have another B5 reunion, and if so, I am so there. Because Phoenix Comic Con has, in the past, been really good about getting Babylon 5, at least who's left of the cast, together.
You know, the only time that I've ever met anyone from Babylon 5 was I met J. Michael Straczynski in 2007 or 8. It was San Diego Comic-Con. I was shaking like a leaf on the wind. It was because, well, I mean, I attended his panel, and I think at that time he was either promoting or writing or both the major motion picture that he did with Angelina Jolie, The Changeling, I think it was called.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So he kind of like catapulted from, Babylon 5 writer and J. Michael Straczynski Babylon fame to, all these different comic books that he was doing. He did Spider-Man, he did Thor, he did all these comic books. And then all of a sudden, he started doing the Hollywood stuff. And
and then he's never been big, but I think that did make him a bigger name.
Right. And even in like the very first Thor movie, he saw him trying to pull Mjolnir out of the desert sands in that crater. It's like, I remember when I saw that movie, it was like, oh my God, like JMS is on, he's in the MCU, which is baller, right?
Yeah, totally. So you got to meet him. That is badass. And if I get a chance for him to autograph I'll eventually have his copy of Becoming Superman, his autobiography. Right. If he does a book signing in LA, I do want to be there. I am going to be nervous. I am going to be a little starstruck. He is one of my idols.
Yeah. And rightfully so. I mean, not only is, he's the creator and the writer of the majority of the episodes of Babylon 5, but I mean, like, he is.
He's just a generally awesome guy. He stands by his convictions, sort of like Jakar, where he kind of knows his limit, in terms of compromise, in terms of right and wrong. He will stand up for the right thing. He has done it. And
no
I have nothing but respect for a guy like that.
Here's the interesting thing is, like, I'm a big 1980s TV viewer, and recently I've been like diving into a lot of Magnum PI, the original Magnum PI with Tom Selleck. And lo and behold, one of the directors who has directed a fair amount of episodes of Magnum PI is the Babylon 5 legendary Micah Vehar.
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding.
Cool.
And the one thing that I was looking for, Shard, is like, is he shooting through any type of foreground type of effect that he usually does, like with lighting or with, like, plants or something like that? And yes, he did.
Sure. Really? Okay, so the technique was already there.
His technique, Mike Vehar's technique, was already there. And
that's
we're talking like mid-1980s.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So he has a pattern, like a lot of people do, to what they want, how they go for it. Oh, that's cool.
I was like, because believe me, like, and I'm not like, I'm a newer Magnum PI fan from the classic, and when I saw that name like pop up in the directors, I'm like, Mike Vehar. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I know who that is.
I know Mike Vehar.
Oh my god. Yeah, I've been tempted to go back and find JMS's episodes of Murder, She Wrote, because he did an AMA just yesterday, as of this recording, about some of the details of that show. And I did not appreciate that show in its time. It just wasn't for me. But I think if I go back now, I might really dig it.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that you like know the style, and then like kind of like see where it kind of started, back in the day.
Would be cool. Yeah, kind of see the evolution of JMS as we go. So, last question, because we're already over time. What last one do we want to tackle here?
Dennis has a really good question here. It's like, do you agree with how Sheridan used the telepaths to end the war with Earth by using them as weapons to disable Earth Force at Mars?
Oh, buddy, putting out the big guns. I like it.
Right.
Okay. This I always felt was a necessary evil.
Yeah.
The Vorlons designed telepaths to fight in this war. They were not always conscious that they were fighting for the war, but as somebody pointed out in season 4, they're fighting just as much as everybody else. They just don't know it. It sucks, and yet a lot of these people's lives were already, they'd been tampered with. They might have not had the greatest quality of life. They did what they could, and no, it's not the best thing in the world. It's definitely arguable, but it was a means to an end, and Sheridan kind of knew that, had to live with it, and he had to make his peace with it because he just did. I mean, the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You can always ask that question. Well, how many lives before it becomes too many? I'm not the judge of that. Thank goodness. I would hate to have to answer that question, but I think for the resources he had and what they had to do, he had to do it. And I'll just say that.
Yeah, I agree. When it came to the telepaths, Sheridan saw them as a means to an end. Obviously, they were developed as a means to an end, which leads obviously into kind of like what I was talking about with season 5. But Sheridan was always one to see kind of like the abstract ways of winning a war. Of course that we always kind of like make light and point of fact that it's John Newcomb Sheridan, but
yes,
like he wins because he thinks organically, and he thinks in a way where people usually don't go. That's why he's good. That's why Left Court General Leftcourt says, I know the way he thinks. It's like, but he really doesn't. It's like I trained him. It's like, but he really doesn't.
Yeah. Sheridan does have that capability. It's true. He does think out of the box.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what this, like, he always keeps things in his back pocket. When you rewatch Babylon 5, he always says things like, no, let's not reveal our hand right now. Let's not let them know that we have this, in our back pocket, because he always wants to have some type of, some delta, some X variable that he can throw into the mix, where people are like, okay, I figured Sheridan out. I know his pattern. I know his thoughts. I know this. I know that. But all of a sudden, boom, something happens. And it's like, yeah, you didn't see that coming. Right. So like the Minbari, with the whole, with the Sheridan Star Killer and him hitting the Dralafi, that they didn't think that would be possible. Right. And that's him.
But Sheridan always does have something hiding in his back pocket. Aside from nukes, that's his other trademark.
Right. He's always like, he doesn't want to reveal all of his cards too soon. He would have been a great poker player. It would have been great to see him play poker against Picard. Well,
he's a great strategist. That's what he really is.
Yeah, but he always finds a way to win. That's his MO. That's his.
Yeah. Like Kirk, I don't like to lose.
I don't like to lose. That's right.
I think that's Sheridan too. He does not like to lose, and he will find a way to survive.
Right. And that's not to put him past a moral, like a moral kind of,
he doesn't have to have the moral high ground, if that's what you
high ground. That's it. That's exactly what.
Honestly, no. Sheridan is willing to get a little dirty in that.
Right.
Because the ends do justify the means. If there's a way that he can win, he will take it.
Right. He's looking at bigger picture. He's looking at the overall landscape.
But then again, that goes right back to the whole thing with Byron and the telepaths. After doing that, after using telepaths to win that war, I do think he felt a little obligated.
Right.
To give back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we should close up the show.
Dying. Emily, don't bring up Sleeping in Light, please.
Oh, I'm gonna cry. No.
I just brought that up on Twitter.
I can't.
Like Sleeping in Light.
I can't.
I can't get that yet. I can't go there right now. Let's hold off on that.
Let's not and say we did.
All right. I dig that you asked. I think you mean Sleeping in Light. That episode is very legendary for me. It is.
Absolutely.
Here's the interesting thing, and I want to close out with this.
Yeah.
What Emily's saying is that there are a lot of series that close out, like, Game of Thrones closed out, like Star Trek Discovery, like season 2 closed out. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of series endings that people reference. Like All Good Things or What We Leave Behind or Endgame, things like that. Those are all Star Trek references. But the thing is that, to me, and I said this on Twitter, I was like, to me, no series ending episode has ever as emotionally affected me the way that Sleeping in Light has and still does. Right?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think the closest thing that you referenced, what might have been All Good Things on The Next Generation, because that was a great epic ending to that show. But did it bring me into a pool of tears? No. Right. It was kind of a celebration, which is a great positive way of looking back on that series. DS9, it was great for what it was. With Endgame, I was actually mildly disappointed because that's just the way I feel about Voyager on a lot of things, as much as I love it. But Sleeping in Light is on a different level than anything else I think I have watched ever. I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. I usually have a sort of disconnect when I'm watching TV. So the things that are happening on screen don't necessarily have as profound of an impact on me in real life as they do, on the show. Like I can separate my emotions from what is happening and they don't necessarily affect me.
Yeah. Yep.
With Sleeping in Light, those barriers are broken down. And you do that to me, and then I am in a puddle of tears for the last 20 minutes at least. every time. And that's why I watch Sleeping in Light very sparingly.
That's so interesting to me, yeah, that's going to have to be kind of like, we're going to have to talk about that in context, because what? It's an interesting question. Like my final question is like, why do you think that is? And you know what? Here's something that's I find that's interesting is that, with every series season ending, no matter what series it is or what season it is, the series season ending, is it because the overall series itself was so strong that by the time that you have created the ending, that you're realizing how strong the series really is?
That might be a big part of it.
Overall, with TNG, with All Good Things, and I think arguably the best series finale of all the Star Trek episodes, in my opinion.
I have to agree.
It's because the series in and of itself and the characters and where you brought them to that point is so strong. You can't help but be moved to tears by the quality of what you are saying in that final episode.
Totally. It's that endearment, and then it's also the fact that you are saying goodbye.
Yeah.
And I think the combination of those two things, and powerful writing, just breaks your freaking heart.
But even though you're not, though, because the thing is that when they said goodbye, you still had Generations, you still had First Contact, you still had Insurrection, you still had Nemesis.
That was just the thing with Star Trek TNG, is we already knew at that point they were getting a movie. So was it goodbye? No. We just knew they were moving on. And so that kind of, I think that really took away from the power of All Good Things, where if they had not announced that there was a movie that was shooting the following week for that cast, I think we might have felt a lot more heartbroken, but they didn't do that. And so with Babylon 5, there's a definite finality to it. Never mind the fact that we got the 5th season. The way they shot that, it is so real that they felt like everything was coming to an end, that is the clincher. That's what breaks us down.
Yeah.
That is what really just puts that final nail in the coffin, if you will.
Right. And at the time, there was no this is going to happen. We're going to get a movie. We're going to get this. We're going to get that. There is no Trek movie of Babylon 5 of sorts. There is no internet. There is no social media. There's nothing like that. It was the end.
When they shot Sleeping in Light, they didn't know that the TNT was going to pick up for a 5th season. They thought this was it. We didn't know we were getting TV movies. We didn't know if Babylon 5 was going to have any kind of a future, much less spin-offs, anything else. This was it. And the actors brought it, and holy hell, did they punctuate.
I dig.
Ugh.
So, okay.
First of all, on that happy note, let's close out the show.
Thank you, everybody who joined in. Thank you, everybody who has been, the new fans to the ZócaloCast on Facebook. In our liner notes here on the show, you can find ways to follow us across social media. You can follow us on the ZócaloCast on Instagram and on Twitter. You can find us on, as you can see me, Lounge Lizard here. You can find me there on Instagram. Char, where can our fans find you?
The best place to find me personally is on Twitter, and my handle is the Profanity, and I'd be happy to talk about all things related to Babylon 5 there.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody who has participated in our live chat tonight.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is the kind of format that we like to do.
We want interaction. Hell
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we love doing this, and we love talking about Babylon 5. And stay tuned on the Facebook page, on Twitter, and on Instagram. We're gonna let you know what the next episode is going to be very soon. But this has been a fantastic discussion. And on that note, unless I have any more to drink, I don't think I do. Maybe I do. I don't know.
Better check.
I'll check. Anywho, thanks everybody for joining us on the ZócaloCast. You are the reason why we do this show. So until next week,
you make it fun.
Be seeing you.